The children of Ishmael. Over the years, Ishmael's children themselves had children. His descendants increased and formed tribes which spread out all over Arabia. One of these tribes was called Quraysh. Its people never moved away from Makkah and always lived near the Kaaba. One of the duties of the leader of Quraysh was to look after those who came on pilgrimage to the Kaaba. The pilgrims would come from all over Arabia, and it was a great honor to provide them with food and water. As time passed, however, the Arabs stopped worshipping Allah directly and started bringing idols back with them from the different countries they visited. These idols were placed at the Kaaba, which was no longer regarded as the sanctuary of Allah, as Ibrahim had intended it. It was, however, still respected by the Arabs. Around this time, the well of Zamzam disappeared beneath the sand. Also at this time, Qusay, one of the leaders of Quraysh, became ruler over Makkah. He held the keys of the Kaaba and had the right to give water to the pilgrims, to feed them, to take charge of meetings, and to hand out war banners before battle. It was also in his house that Quraysh settled their affairs. After Qusay's death, his son Abd Manaf, who had become famous during his father's lifetime, took over the leadership of Quraysh. After him came his son Hashim. It is said that Hashim was the first to begin the two great caravan journeys of Quraysh, one in the summer to Syria and the north, and one in the winter to Yemen and the south. As a result, Makkah grew rich and became a large and important center of trade. One summer Hashim went north to buy goods to sell in Yemen. On his way he stopped in Yathrib to trade in the market, and there he saw a beautiful woman. She was Selma, the daughter of Amr bin Zayd, who was from a much respected family. Hashim proposed marriage to her, and she accepted because he was an honorable and distinguished man. In time, Selma gave birth to a beautiful son. As some of his hair was white, they called him Sheba, which in Arabic means gray-haired. Mother and son stayed in the cooler, healthier climate of Yathrib, while Hashim returned to Makkah. However, he would visit them each time he took his caravan to the north. During one of these journeys, however, Hashim became ill and died. Sheba, a handsome and intelligent boy, grew up in his uncle's house in Yathrib. He was proud of being the son of Hashim ibn Abd Manaf, the head of Quraysh, guardian of the Kaaba, and protector of the pilgrims, even though he had not known his father, who had died while Sheba was still very young. At Hashim's death, his brother al-Muttalib took over his duties and responsibilities. He traveled to Yathrib to see his nephew Sheba, and decided that, as the boy would one day inherit his father's place, the time had come for him to live in Makkah. It was hard for Salma, Sheba's mother, to let her son go with his uncle, but she finally realized that it was for the best. Al-Muttalib returned to Makkah, entering the city at noon on his camel, with Sheba behind him. When the people of Makkah saw the boy, they thought he was a slave, and pointing at him called out, Abd al-Muttalib. The word Abd means slave in Arabic. Al-Muttalib told them that Sheba was not a slave, but his nephew who had come to live with them. From that day on, however, Sheba was always affectionately called Abd al-Muttalib. After the death of al-Muttalib, who died in Yemen, where he had gone to trade, Abd al-Muttalib took his place. He became the most respected member of his family, loved and admired by all. He was, however, unlike those Arabs who had given up the teachings of Ibrahim. The promise at Zamzam. The well of Zamzam, which disappeared when the Arabs placed idols at the Kaaba, remained buried under the sand. Thus, for many years, the people of Quraysh had to fetch their water from far away. One day, Abd al-Muttalib was very tired from doing this, and fell asleep next to the Kaaba. He had a dream, in which he was told to dig up Zamzam. When he woke up, he was puzzled, because he did not know what Zamzam was, the well having disappeared many years before he was born. The next day he had the same dream, but this time he was told where to find the well. Abd al-Muttalib had one son at that time, and together they began to dig. The work was so difficult that Abd al-Muttalib made an oath to Allah that if one day he were to have 10 sons to help him and stand by him, in return he would sacrifice one of them in Allah's honor. After working for 3 days, they finally found the well of Zamzam. Pilgrims have been drinking from it ever since. The years passed by, and Abd al-Muttalib did have 10 sons. They grew into fine, strong men, and the time came for him to keep his promise to Allah. He told his sons about the promise, and they agreed that he had to sacrifice one of them. To see which one it would be, they decided to draw lots, which was the custom of Quraysh when deciding important matters. Abd al-Muttalib told each son to get an arrow and write his own name upon it, and then to bring it to him. This they did, after which he took them to the Kaaba, where there was a man whose special task it was to cast arrows and pick one from among them. This man solemnly proceeded to do this. On the arrow he chose was written the name of Abdullah, the youngest and favored son of Abd al-Muttalib. Even so, the father took his son near the Kaaba and prepared to sacrifice him. Many of the Quraysh leaders were present, and they became very angry because Abdullah was very young and much loved by everyone. They tried to think of a way to save his life. Someone suggested that the advice of a wise old woman who lived in Yathrib should be sought, and so Abd al-Muttalib took his son and went to see if she could decide what to do. Some of the Meccans went with them, and when they got there the woman asked, "What is the price of a man's life?" They told her, 10 camels. For at that time, if one man killed another, his family would have to give 10 camels to the dead man's family, in order to keep the peace among them. So the woman told them to go back to the Kaaba, and draw lots between Abdullah and 10 camels. If the camels were chosen, they were to be killed, and the meat given to the poor. If Abdullah was picked, then 10 more camels were to be added, and the lots drawn again and again, until they finally fell on the camels. al-Muttalib returned to the Kaaba with his son, and the people of Makkah. There they started to draw lots between Abdullah and the camels, beginning with 10 camels. al-Muttalib prayed to Allah to spare his son, and everyone waited in silence for the result. The choice fell on Abdullah, so his father added 10 more camels. Again the choice fell on Abdullah, so they did the same thing again and again, adding 10 camels each time. Finally they reached 100 camels, and only then did the lot fall on the camels. Abdullah was saved, and everyone was very happy. al-Muttalib, however, wanted to make sure that this was the true result, so he repeated the draw 3 times, and each time it fell on the camels. He then gave thanks to Allah that he had spared Abdullah's life. The camels were sacrificed, and there was enough food for the entire city, even the animals and birds. Abdullah grew up to be a handsome young man, and his father eventually chose Aminah, the daughter of Wahb, as a wife for him. It was a good match, for she was the finest of Quraysh women, and Abdullah the best of the men. He spent several months with his wife, but then he had to leave her, and travel with one of the caravans to trade with Seerah. On his way back to Makkah from Seerah, Abdullah became ill, and had to stop off in Yathrib to recover. The caravan, however, continued on its way, and arrived back in Makkah without him. On hearing of Abdullah's illness, al-Muttalib sent another son, al-Harith, to bring Abdullah back to Makkah, but he was too late. When he arrived in Yathrib, Abdullah was dead. Aminah was heartbroken to lose her husband and the father of the child she would soon give birth to. Only Allah knew that this orphan child would one day be a great prophet.